You know what happened in the missing 5 hours. I bet it's a good story.
It is. It begins like all good stories. Once upon a time.
Okay, that's great and everything, but I'm gonna need a report on my desk in like 5 hours tops because we really need to know what happened.
Hello there, crew. This is Scott Bakula. You may know me from such great works like Star Trek Enterprise, Quantum Leap, and that one episode of Boston Legal. Anyone remember Boston Legal? Anyone under 30? No? Okay. Anyways, my time is finally here because Jessie is still recovering from her surgery and her face looks like a Solobon and a Zindi Aquatic had a baby. So, I'm going to be taking over for her for this video and we're going to review the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, The Elysian Kingdom. Of course, it's not as good as Star Trek Enterprise, but, you know, nothing really is. It was a long road getting from there to here, but dang it, we're here now. As usual, I'll start off with a spoiler-free section, and we'll give an overview thoughts of the episode, and we'll get into spoilers in just a second. Starting us right off, though, the concept of this episode was absolutely tons of fun. The idea of turning the crew of the Enterprise and the Enterprise itself into a sort of dark fantasy sword and sorcery tale, storybook story, was absolutely just sheer delight from front to back. And that is no more seen first and foremost in the production design and costuming. That entire department, well, certainly not as great as our blue jumpsuits and our super heavy spacesuits on Enterprise on the good old NX-01, was effervescent this entire episode. Every costume looked amazing. The way the ship looked and felt just was truly wonderful. Every single set looked completely different from what we were normally used to. Especially loved the sickbay set, which was rooted in like a forest and you got sort of a witch's brew potion going on, as well as the Enterprise bridge too, where you got to see candelabras on the bridge. Why does not every starship come with candelabras? I demand that every starship now have candelabras because they just look so wonderful. It was great. But I also should call out the costuming. I mean, costuming this season has been fantastic just in general. But the looks here were truly amazing. Certainly most noticeably on Celia Rose Gooding's Uhura. She was truly fantastic looking in that outfit. And every single shot was like, whew, damn, girl looks freaking amazing. Yes, I, Scott Bakula, just went, damn girl, you couldn't put that down. Speaking of Celia Rose Gooding Jr., though, everyone's acting in this was also truly a joy. It was clearly a lot of fun for every single actor to sort of break out of their shell and try something new and try a different type of character. Most notably, Celia Rose Gooding, though I think half of her acting was being done by her outfit, let's be fair. But they did a great job. But even on top of that, seeing Anson Mount go from the wonderful Captain Pike that we all know and love to a sniveling toady Chamberlain was just absolutely hysterical. Of course, I, Captain Archer, would never have done something, Scott Bakula, excuse me, I would never have done anything like that on the NX-01. Never would have done anything ethically dubious, ever.
And what I've decided goes against all my principles.
Look, Janeway killed Tuvix, okay? Also, Melissa Navia, apologies if I said that wrong, who usually plays Ortegas, is fantastic here as the King's right-hand man. Really a great job all around, though. However, getting to a few negatives of the episode, I do feel like the pacing for this one was just a little bit too slow. It wasn't that it dragged horribly, but I did feel that the episode slowed down a little bit towards the middle, and I felt like it could have trimmed just a little bit here and there to make this episode just a little bit tighter. Nothing too much, maybe a minute or two. You know, everyone knows that 45-minute episodes are certainly the best. Nothing better, nothing worse than a good 44-minute episode back when we were doing it back during the Berman era. Sorry, yeah, got a little bit heated there. Anyways, pacing a little bit lacking, but still not too detrimental. However, I do feel like the character of Mbenga could have been a little bit more clever in terms of how he utilized his awareness of the situation and the story being told to try and subvert expectations. And then finally, I can't talk about this too much without getting into the spoiler-filled section. I was kind of shocked at how one particular storyline that we've been having go throughout the series so far was mostly wrapped up in this episode. It was kind of a little bit out of nowhere, and I was kind of shocked to see it. and I'm curious to see if and what they have planned next. So I thought that was a little bit quick, but we'll have to talk a little bit more about that in the spoiler section. So to wrap this out, all I'll say is this was a really fun episode overall that I deeply enjoyed, even if it has a few little quabbles and quibbles that I have here and there. But overall, just a great addition to this excellent first season of Strange New Worlds. But now get your load of Makos ready because we are about to enter the Expanse by going into spoilers. Alright, I'm going to go through this episode kind of beat by beat, but I kind of touched upon most of the stuff that I wanted to talk about, so I'll just kind of go through this story and pick out a few moments here and there that I really enjoyed. I loved seeing the opening of the episode with Mbenga reading his story to his daughter, and we sort of get this implication that she only has a few hours left in terms of being outside of the buffer. So I like that sort of stakes and ticking clock being set up right from the beginning, as well as establishing this storybook story that we're going to be seeing here, as well as establishing that Mbenga's daughter wants to have a different version of the story that will obviously come around later. So very economical opening that sets the stakes, reminds us of the importance of Mbenga's daughter, and sets up some ideas for later on. But then I also really enjoyed Una coming in and talking to Mbenga and reminding him that he has duties beyond just his daughter. I did think that was really important to see because this is a professional organization, and while certainly Mbenga is going to care about his daughter more, he does have certain duties that he needs to fix on, and if he's not going to be able to do them, he should quit Starfleet. And I like Una kind of pushing to him and reminding him of that, but not doing so in a rude way, that she understands that he's in a hard position, that he's dealing with a lot, and she says, okay, go get some rest, but then remember to just be on track tomorrow. I thought that was just a very kind way for a commander to do it, and I thought that was good characterization for Una. From there, I loved the little skit that we got on the bridge with Pike and Spock talking about jinxing something and being a little bit superstitious, obviously playing into the idea that Spock is going to become a wizard in just a little while, so I thought that was a nice little foreshadowing and a fun little bit between those two characters. But then, of course, everything goes wonky and the ship gets stuck in the nebula and Mbenga is called up to the bridge and everything turns into a fantasy world! Woo! I've already spoken mostly a lot about generalities with this setting, but can we just again admire the production design and those damn candelabras? They just look so dang good, and I just loved all these little moments here. Ortegas is great. I love their fight over the wine that she has with Anson Mount's character, showcasing their sort of conflict that they'll have throughout this episode in microcosm about her wanting to be more aggressive and him wanting to sort of like not really care too much about the safety of the king, but only being there to please him. I thought that was really nice, and the sort of joke about hold the jester that Anson Mount had was also great, and also referring to the computer as an oracle was a lot of fun. But then we go down to sickbay, and I love seeing Chapel as like a witch healer lady. I thought that was a lot of fun. But then we also meet Princess Talia, who is played by La'an Noonien Singh, and it just showcases this actor's range. She is clearly just enjoying getting to break out of that drummer style, starey, angry character that she has to play. Not that I don't like the character, but this is clearly just a complete 180 from that, and she's clearly living up the chance to be able to do it, and it's just so much fun. We learn a little bit about the MacGuffin of the Mercury Stone that we're going to be having here throughout the episode, and sort of set things up for that. But then we get to see Hemmer being dragged away, and I love that we get to see that he has not lost his memories. And he's sort of like, what's going on? What is happening right now? Please help me. And I love the look of the guards, too, that are dragging him away. I thought that was good. And then the confrontation was nice, and sort of everyone sort of believing in Mbenga's like, yeah, King, you can do it. And Mbenga sort of really smartly tricking everyone and being like, look, that wizard, Hemmer, he knows what we're going to need to do to get the stone, and I think that was sort of a clever way to get everyone on board his side, sort of tricking them to get on his side so he knows he can rescue Hemmer, because he knows that Hemmer is the only person that is able to help him at this moment, because he's the only one that has his brains intact, I guess we should say. Also, I know that this isn't news to all of you, but come on, it's an Enar. I mean, an Enar from Star Trek Enterprise. Hemmer's an Enar. We created that. That was our thing. Just thought I'd mention it. Yo, Star Trek Enterprise for that. So, there you go. You're welcome. Then we go to the little planning table. I love the little planning table with the models. I thought that was cute. And then I also love that they decided to try diplomacy instead of going for an attack first. That's a very Starfleet way. And then Mbenga's like, oh, you can stay here, to Princess Talia. I thought was also pretty smart and cute. Then we go down into the bowels of the ship as they sort of head down to meet the Queen. And I love we meet Spock here, who looks like a 1980s dark fantasy emo wizard. Absolute perfection. He looks so good. He was just too perfect. I absolutely adored it. Also, my favorite moment of the episode came here where Spock says, we need to go through the swamp of infinite death. And then Anson Mount just leaned forward and he's like, oh, that's not a good swamp, sire. I laughed my butt off at that. That was absolutely great. And I loved that we're very clear that Spock was going to lead them into a trap here. And then we're going up the Jeffries tube and we meet Uhura and her badass bomb queen outfit. That was freaking great. Absolutely wonderful. Here's something, though, that I started to realize that I wish we could have been a little bit more clever throughout this episode, because here Mbenga mostly just goes along with the story. He knows what the story is ahead of time, but he mostly sort of like, yeah, this is what that point of the story is right now. But he never really, at any particular point, uses his awareness of what's going to be coming ahead to subvert the expectations of the story. And it comes up a few times, like he knows that Anson Mount's character is probably going to betray him, and yet he lets him go anyways, and he's kind of a little bit surprised when he eventually does. So I did find all of that a little bit disappointing, that we never get a chance to sort of see him being like, oh, I know this element of the story, why don't we zig instead of zag? And I thought that that could have been a little bit more clever playing around with that, but unfortunately we don't get to see it all that much. But then the crew gets taken to the Turbolift dungeon. This was great. Again, Anson Mount just hamming it up, being like, oh, I'm gonna die in here. It was great. And also the Turbolift being a dungeon. Very clever idea. I love that Hemmer and Mbenga sort of connect and figure out that there's a consciousness that's probably creating this, because Hemmer felt it. Again, sort of pointing out his telepathy and his strong telepathic powers. Again, Star Trek Enterprise, you're welcome. But then I also love Hemmer escaping and pretending that science is magic. It was just a really fun time. You could tell that Hemmer wasn't doing it. It's like, yes, it's science. It was a good little bit. Then we get the crew being attacked by some of the Queen's guard, and this was absolutely wonderful when Ortega shows up and is like, you're unarmed, and Ortega fights one guy and grabs a sword and says, I've armed myself. I was like, whew, damn, all right, a little bit turned on there, I say, as totally Scott Bakula and not Jessie. Anyways, they also get rescued by Una, who's a badass archer. I love that. And I also love the implication that we get later on when they go back to engineering, where they say, we know each other quite well. And it's like, yeah, we know. You boned. We get it. Here for that. I also really like that they sort of figure out that there's not much they can do, but Mbenga sort of realizes that the story has changed to match what his daughter's interpretation of the story was. I like that Mbenga at least got that moment, sort of having that realization that there was sort of a twist to the story. So I thought that they're at least having that element of it was great, and that they need to go to his quarters in order to find his daughter because she's gone from the pattern buffer. Also worth mentioning, Spock's shit-eating grin when he betrays everybody. That was cute and adorable. Almost as cute and adorable as T'Pol, am I right? Right? Remember when she got addicted to Trillium D? That was cute, right? But then when they eventually do get betrayed by Anson Mount, I've already talked about my disappointment with Mbenga not recognizing that earlier outside of the quarters. I thought this was a good little scene, mostly just for Hemmer, getting to ham it all up with the science powers. I thought it was just so wonderful to see him going really over the top and then teleporting them away and just getting into it. He didn't need to do that, but he was just having fun with it. And I enjoyed that not just because it was fun, but it also showed that while Hemmer is a bit of a curmudgeon, he's not so stuffy that he can't have some fun anyways. Like, I like that he is sort of a guy that will often frown more than smile, but he can smile. And I like that this scene showed that it sort of broke his character a little bit, broke his character stereotype a little bit, and I thought that was fun. But then we get to the sort of wrap out of the episode where we meet Mbenga's daughter, Akia, and they use Hemmer to talk to the entity in the nebula. And we sort of get a quick little wrap out with the end. He's like, oh, I did all this because I wanted your daughter to not feel alone. I thought this was kind of like very Star Trek-y and that there wasn't a nefarious reason behind it. It was just an entity wanting to reach out and connect with everybody. I enjoyed that. But then we sort of get a wrap out of Mbenga's story with his daughter, because we sort of learn that Mbenga has to let his daughter go in order for her to be cured by this nebula, and that she'll live a life inside the nebula, creating her own stories. I am a little bit kind of saddened by this quick resolution to the story, because I do think that there was a bit more story to mine with Mbenga's daughter and him looking for the cure. Obviously, I would rather the story be too short and end a little bit too quickly so it doesn't drag out forever, but I do feel like there could have been one or two more stories with Mbenga trying to find a cure for his daughter. Like maybe he goes too far at one point in terms of his ethics for looking to his daughter, or he fails Starfleet at one point because he's trying to fail his daughter. I think there just could have been more stories there, and I'm kind of saddened that it's sort of quickly wrapped out here in this episode. That being said, it is sort of an appropriately emotional moment with his daughter. It didn't kick me in the heart too hard because I haven't gotten to know her all that well, or Mbenga all that well either. But I do think it was appropriately sad. And the moment where his daughter comes back and is older, I thought, again, a little bit convenient. I was hoping that maybe they would be able to come back to her as his daughter at some point in the series and be like, oh, she's still his daughter. But unfortunately, no, she's now all grown up, as they say, and maybe we'll see her come back later on in the series as some sort of Q-like entity. Very possible to see. But I don't know. It feels like it was just quick, and that's really all I can say about it. It's not bad. I don't dislike the ending, but it just feels a bit quick and neat to me, because it's now just like, all right, well, I guess Mbenga's daughter's gone, so done with that storyline now. Mbenga will have to find some other character pathos to deal with. So I thought that was I don't know, just a little bit tidy. But ultimately, it works for me. And then we get to the final scene of the episode that I've already sort of joked about back at the beginning of the video, where Mbenga says, yes, to Una, I know what happened during those 5 hours, and everyone forgot everything, and I'll tell you a nice, cute little story to remind you of what happened. And I'm shocked that Una was just like, no, I need to report. Please, I need to report. So that sort of wraps up my thoughts on the episode. Like I said, this was a fun little one. I do have issues here and there with pacing and things like that, and maybe a little bit too quick of a resolution on Mbenga's storyline with his daughter. But on the whole, this was just a fun, enjoyable hour-long time with our characters just getting to try out new character types and get to play around and do a cool little fantasy setting on the Enterprise, which is something pretty unique that I don't think we've really seen on Star Trek before. The only thing I could think of closest to it would have been Cupid back in Star Trek The Next Generation, but even that was sort of in more like a separate world and not on the Enterprise itself. So this is certainly a step up from that, and I really enjoyed it. So let me know what all of you think. Don't forget to subscribe. Hopefully next week Jessie will be back, but also don't forget to check out the wonderful Star Trek Enterprise, which is a show that I have no bias towards whatsoever. I just think it's swell, and other than that, I hope that you all live long and prosper, and don't be afraid of the wind.